If you've been thinking about making the move to Langley, BC, then you're in the right place because in this video, I'm going to give you the top 5 things you need to know before you move here. What's going on, guys? My name's Alex Dunbar and I'm a local realtor right here based in Langley, BC. If this is your first time on my channel, I make weekly real estate videos pertaining to the BC and Canadian real estate market, as well as showcase community tours across the Lower Mainland. So if that's something you're interested in seeing more of, I suggest you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you're notified whenever I come out with a new video. Recently, I've been having tons of people that are looking to move to the Langley area reach out by call, text, or email, and I absolutely love it. So if after watching this video you feel like that's a discussion you want to have, you can scroll down and hit the first link in the description to book a call with me to go over your options. But let's not waste any more time and we'll get right into it. If you're unfamiliar, Langley, BC is located in the Lower Mainland as well as being part of Greater Vancouver. And in comparison to Vancouver, it's on the east side of the Fraser River and about a 45 to 60 minute drive. It's bordered by Surrey to the west, Abbotsford to the east, the Fraser River to the north, and the US to the south. Langley is actually made up of 2 separate municipalities. We've got the Langley Township, which you can see is the larger of the 2 and encircles Langley City. Most people just refer to these 2 areas collectively as Langley, but keeping this distinction in mind will be important later in the video. So the first thing you're going to need to know about is the home and rent prices. Home prices in Langley are higher than the average across Canada, however lower than surrounding cities here in the Lower Mainland. And in comparison to Vancouver, both home and rent prices are significantly lower. Home prices being on average about 25 to 30% less than Vancouver, and rent prices being around 33% less than that of Vancouver. And even with that being the case, Langley is still extremely expensive compared to the rest of Canada. But if you want to live in the Lower Mainland, it's going to come at a price. Langley has tons of new homes being built here every single year, especially condos and townhomes. But there's also a handful of protected heritage homes in places like Murrayville and Fort Langley to maintain the city's history. Additionally, if you're looking for acreage, a big backyard, or just some privacy from your neighbors, Langley's definitely the place to be. Looking at the current benchmark home prices in Langley versus Vancouver, they're the following. Detached homes are $1.622 million versus $2.462 million. Townhomes are $889,000 versus $1.323 million. And condos are $609,000 versus $791,000. Keep in mind that depending on when you watch this video, prices are likely a little bit different, so I will leave a link down the description that has current prices. Moving on to rent prices, for a 1-bedroom in Langley, you're looking at about $1,600 per month, whereas Vancouver, you're looking at about $2,400. For a 2-bedroom in Langley, you're looking at about $2,300, whereas Vancouver, you're looking at about $3,500. And for a 3-bed townhouse in Langley, you're looking at about $3,000 a month versus $4,700 in Vancouver. Alternatively, basement suites can typically be found at a lower price point. And although there is no objective data source for me to pull this information from my experience, it's about 15 to 20% cheaper. The second thing you're going to want to know about is the weather. And if you currently live outside the Lower Mainland, you've probably heard that it rains a lot here. But in my opinion, I think most people have what I'm going to call a weather overreaction. Vancouver is typically referred to as Raincouver or even the wet coast. And because of this, the rest of Greater Vancouver typically gets the same reputation. And while this does hold true to an extent, again, I think people overreact a little bit. However, Langley is typically warmer and brighter than not only the rest of Canada, but also the rest of Greater Vancouver. I personally find that every time it's sunny in Langley and I start to head out into other places like New West, Burnaby, or Vancouver, it's often cloudy or rainy elsewhere. Statistics show that Langley gets less rain than Vancouver, however more snow. In regards to temperature, Langley typically has higher daily highs, but lower daily lows. So essentially, it's warmer during the day and colder during the night. Although, as I already mentioned, being a suburb of Vancouver, you should still expect quite a bit of rain. In the winter time, we don't get a ton of snow. It's typically just cold, wet, and cloudy. But when it does snow, it's typically gone within a couple of days. In regards to the summers, they get pretty hot, but they're just too short. So we typically only end up getting about 3 months of summer. And the hottest months of the year are June, July, and August. However, over the past couple of years, we've actually had some pretty crazy heat waves. And this has been a little bit unexpected for Langley and the rest of the Lower Mainland. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you have AC wherever you end up going. But overall, Langley's weather is far warmer and milder than the rest of Canada. And this is definitely one of the main attractions for people moving here, especially if they already live outside the Lower Mainland. In the summertime, you can expect the average daily highs to sit in the mid 20s. However, it does get up to the 30s and above. And in the winter time, your average daily lows are just above freezing. The third thing you're gonna wanna think about is if you're a foreign buyer. This means if you don't have your citizenship or your permanent residence. However, there is one other loophole which I'll get to in a minute. But if this doesn't pertain to you, feel free to skip to point number 4. Currently in BC, we have a foreign buyer's tax of 20% on top of the purchase price. And this only pertains to certain markets in BC, with Langley being one of them. And this foreign buyer's tax applies to foreign nationals, foreign corporations, and taxable trustees. And for the purpose of this video, we're just going to stick to foreign nationals. The definition of a foreign national is a person who is not a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident of Canada, including a stateless person. With that being said, if you fall into this category, you will be subject to this 20% foreign buyer's tax. Additionally, it's important to keep in mind that Canada is actually putting on a 2-year ban on foreign nationals starting in January of 2023. However, this ban on foreign investors doesn't include permanent residents or temporary residents, but I will leave a couple of links in the description with some more information. However, I did mention that there's a couple of exceptions, and in some circumstances, you may be exempt from the additional property transfer tax, and that includes the following. If you're confirmed for the BC Provincial Nominee Program, if you're acquiring a property on behalf of a Canadian-controlled limited partnership, and if you're exempt from paying property transfer tax. If you're unfamiliar with the BC Provincial Nominee Program, I will also leave a link down in the description that has some more information. Moving on to the fourth thing you need to know, and that is transportation. More specifically in regards to driving in transit. Langley is located extremely centrally in the Lower Mainland, making it extremely convenient and accessible. You've got Highway 1 if you're heading east or west. This gives you access to Vancouver, Burnaby, and everything else west of the Fraser River. And conversely, if you're headed in the opposite direction, easy access to Abbotsford, Chilliwack, and the rest of the valley. You've got 200th Street if you're heading north over the Golden Ears Bridge to Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows, or the Tri-Cities. And lastly, if you're heading south, you have tons of routes to get to South Surrey, White Rock, and the US border. Next, I want to go over the driving time to some of the other cities and major landmarks. And this is based off of living in Willoughby. It's going to take you about 40 minutes to get to downtown Vancouver, 30 minutes to get to Burnaby, 25 minutes to get to the Surrey City Centre and SkyTrain, 25 to 30 minutes to get to Abbotsford, 5 to 10 minutes to get to the Costco in Langley, 15 minutes to get to Langley Memorial Hospital, an hour to get to the Vancouver Airport, 30 minutes to get to the US border, and 50 minutes to get to the Tsawwassen ferries. In regards to transit, Langley has some great options in some parts of the city and others aren't so great. If transit's a must for you, I would consider living in Willoughby or Langley City, or even potentially Walnut Grove. However, I highly advise that you have a car if you live outside of those areas. The major transit hub in Langley is located at the Carbolth Bus Exchange, which is in the middle of Willoughby, and unfortunately there is currently no rapid transit. However, there is the future SkyTrain that's going to be coming all the way from Surrey into Langley by the year 2028. This is going to run up Fraser Highway through Fleetwood, Cloverdale, and into Langley City around the 203rd area. In regards to traffic, if you're trying to get across the city during rush hour, it can be an absolute nightmare, especially if you're on 200th or 208th, which are pretty much your only options. So if you can, you should definitely avoid driving during these times. However, these are just the growing pains of an expanding city, and you're going to pretty much find this anywhere you go in the world. But it is something that you definitely need to be made aware of. And moving on to the fifth and final thing you need to know about is the safety. And unfortunately, sometimes Langley gets a bad reputation. However, it's important to note that this is based off a few very small and condensed areas. And if you remember towards the beginning of the video, this is where it's going to be important to remember the differences between the township and Langley City, because the focus of this section is primarily going to be on Langley City. Because unfortunately, this is where the bulk of the homelessness, crime, and drug users exist. However, it's not the entirety of Langley City, it's just a few select neighborhoods. And I should also mention that there is some of this going on in Aldergrove as well. But again, not across the entire community, but just in specific locations. Crime rates in Langley City are quite high, ranked 45th across Canada and 12th in BC. And this is based on the Violent Crime Severity Index. And this essentially takes into account the volume and seriousness of the crime. And for more information regarding that, as well as a list of all cities across Canada, I will leave a link down in the description. However, when we look at the township in comparison to Langley City, it ranks much lower. We have to go way down the list to find it at 115th in Canada and 29th in BC. And if we were able to remove Aldergrove from this equation, I'm sure it would rank even lower. However, in comparison to some of the other major cities in the Lower Mainland, you'd be surprised which actually ranks higher. We have Chilliwack, which ranks number 10 in BC and number 41 in Canada. Vancouver, which ranks number 14 in BC and number 59 in Canada. Canada, Abbotsford, which ranks number 19 in BC and number 73 in Canada, and Surrey, which ranks number 22 in BC and number 115 in Canada. So overall, the majority of Langley Township is extremely safe and you're never going to have anything to worry about. Feel free to check out my previous video if you haven't already on the top 6 neighborhoods in Langley, BC, which you can find right up here. And just to conclude, I wouldn't completely rule out Langley City, you just have to know what you're looking for. I actually currently live there. I'm just towards the outskirts and out of the danger zone. And if you know what you're looking for, I think there's actually some fantastic investment opportunities. And that's why it's so important to work with someone like myself that knows the area very well. And lastly, just to finish off on the safety topic, Langley has its own hospital. This is the Langley Memorial Hospital, which is located in Murrayville. This means whether you're a family, aging, or have medical conditions, you can have peace of mind that there's a hospital nearby. And that's about going to do it for today's video. So if you did get any sort of value from this, all I ask is that you hit the thumbs up button. And if you are interested in seeing more videos just like this one, I suggest you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you're notified whenever I come out with a new video. And if you are considering making the move to Langley but want to learn a little bit more and discuss your unique situation, you can scroll down and hit the first link in the description to book a call with me at your own convenience. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.